Welcome to BFC Live, the daily video and podcast series of Business of Cannabis. BFC Live highlights the companies, brands, people, and trends driving the global cannabis sector. Find out all that we do at businessofcannabis.com. Coming up on BFC Live, we connect with Richard Carlton. He is the CEO of the Canadian Securities Exchange. They play an integral role in the cannabis sector. They are also a sponsor of our upcoming event, Business of Cannabis New York. We wanted to connect with him about what he is seeing from his perspective about U.S. legalization and the impact on the sector. Richard Carlton, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Jay.
Well, it's always good to see you, to hear what's going on in the Canadian Securities Exchange. But also, I think you have a particularly unique lens in which you are looking at the cannabis sector, and hopefully we can talk about that today.
Thank you, Jay. No, it's true. We obviously embraced the cannabis industry in Canada beginning in the spring of 2014 and began working with folks from the United States in 2016 and have obviously done very well by the industry over the last 5-6 years. And yeah, it's been our privilege to work with the industry leaders, the pioneers who are building, literally one of the fastest growing industries in North America.
Well, that must feel pretty good. And we've had sort of part of this conversation before, and I'll say it again, not because you're on, but because I say it to anybody, that I think when the history of cannabis is written over the past several years, the Canadian Securities Exchange will be maybe several chapters in enabling the sector to grow in Canada, in the US, and around the world because of your openness to it. And it's sort of on that note that we're excited to have you on as a partner and a sponsor for our Business of Cannabis New York event coming up on September 29th. But talk a little bit about sort of not the position that you're in historically, but talk about what you're seeing right now in terms of the sector, the companies that are listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange, and sort of what they are feeling, if you can get a sense of what they're feeling about where the cannabis sector is right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pandemic has obviously given us a bit of a roller coaster, I guess, in a number of different directions. As well, of course, as the results of the election in the United States last fall. There was obviously great hope in many quarters that the administration would in fact support legislation that would either see full descheduling of cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act or the passage of bills designed to provide relief to the industry from some of the issues around banking, insurance, interstate commerce, and so on. And I think that as time has gone on, I think the belief is that perhaps the status quo is going to be with us a while longer than we would have hoped. So we saw a run up in asset valuations, in particular for U.S. cannabis companies in late 2020 and into 2021. And then again, as hopes began to fade a little bit, we saw, of course, there's been a bit of a sell-off. But the improvement in the markets in late 2020, early 2021 did give a number of companies, predominantly the large U.S. multi-state operating firms, the opportunity to raise significant amounts of capital. So that companies on the CSE have raised more than 3.3 billion Canadian on a year-to-date basis, and they've led, I think, 9 of the 10 largest financings by companies listed on the exchange. The other company is a Bitcoin broker, so they've obviously been very active. And then later in the year, as I say, I think people began to grasp that the existing framework is likely to be with us for a while. We began to see more mergers and acquisitions activity. So both companies that the public companies acquiring private companies and acquiring each other, both as an opportunity to try to rationalize supply chains, product mix, and obviously, most importantly, licenses in different states that are complementary to the businesses that the companies are operating currently. And most recently, we obviously saw TerraSend indicate that they were going to acquire Gage Cannabis, a Michigan-based company that recently listed on the exchange. And as I say, we expect to see that continue, certainly for the remainder of the year. And I guess the other feature, which is certainly positive for the Canadian Securities Exchange, is that some Canadian LPs who are listed on other exchanges in Canada who aren't quite so accommodating to the cannabis industry have decided to move their listing. So RIV Capital, which is the former Canopy Rivers, the investment arm of Canopy, joined the exchange a few weeks back. And quite clearly, they are intent on making strategic investments in the United States. And recently, the Green Organic Dutchman also announced plans to move over to the CSE, again, to pursue a US investment strategy. So I think there will be no shortage of acquisitions, investment opportunities from the public issuers on the CSE for the remainder of the year. It's going to be very exciting.
Well, it's interesting because sort of starting off the sort of foundational chapter in the history of cannabis will be connected to the Canadian Securities Exchange. And I don't know what chapter we're talking about now, but really the lack of progress on a federal level in the States, married up with really big opportunities in the States, New York and other places, are bringing people, well, to and through and back to, or into the first time, the Canadian Securities Exchange. It's playing this unique role again in the sector, which I think is just fascinating. It must feel good. I don't know what the right, like, do you feel emotional about it, or is it a good feeling to be playing this role?
I'll tell you what I do feel is I'm enormously impressed by the management teams of these companies, because when you think about ordinary startup world is tough. You know that, Jay. You've started up your own company. There's a lot of anxiety, late nights, people telling you you're an idiot for doing what you're doing. My rule of thumb, Jay, is that unless somebody tells me that, I think I might be on the wrong track, or the right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm uncomfortable until somebody tells me I'm an idiot for doing what we're doing. And I can't tell you how many people told us we were idiots for starting a stock exchange in Canada in 2002. But in any event, I am just so, as I say, impressed by the resilience, the ingenuity to basically find a way against this myriad of issues that they have to deal with, and barriers that other entrepreneurs don't have to deal with. And yet they've been able to succeed, and in many cases prosper, to the point where we've got companies now that are earning more than $1 billion in revenue annually. The business is growing at an incredible rate. And I think these are permanent changes. This isn't just sort of a temporary pandemic. People are working from home and consuming legal cannabis at greater rates than they did before. So I think that, as I say, I'm just so impressed by the management teams that we work with from these companies, and what they've been able to overcome and what they've been able to build.
Yeah. Can I ask you another question? Because obviously you do have this lens, lots of cannabis companies doing work in the US, including the MSOs. Many of them are listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange, and sort of couple that sort of feeling and sort of their experience with what is happening in the States, is that things in DC don't seem to be moving. There's often conversation, but not a lot of political oomph behind it, certainly not from the White House. A little teeny bit in the Senate, some in the House, but never in a concerted effort to say, we're going to get this done. I mean, very few people are expending lots of political capital at the federal level. And sort of that creates not angst, but conversation on Twitter from the cannabis world. But I wonder if that's not continuing to build the foundation for competitive advantage for some of these MSOs that are like locking in those states, huge positions in some of those states. You know, we talked about Gage, right? You know, they're all over Michigan. TerraSend has New Jersey properties. Like, there's lots of these things that are actually, every day that it doesn't become federal legal is a day that these companies build further foundations in these states. Is that something you're seeing or believe in?
I think that's a fair analysis, and it's exactly the strategy of the management teams, particularly of the larger MSOs, who can command the capital that will enable them to do the acquisitions or do the organic build outs at the new as different states come online. And, we were joking before, the concern of many in the industry is, well, what if the eventual Amazon of weed is Amazon?
Right.
Uh, and that's a genuine risk if you've got a number of smaller players with limited local market power, penetration, whatever you want to call it. Um, but I think this period of inactivity at the federal level will allow these operators to continue to grow to scale, that they will be able to resist perhaps some of the additional opportunities that may come up if, as, and when federal legislation comes forward. Now, one of the other things, Jay, that I think you and folks will be interested in is, with the, I'm not sure that it's fair to call it stymied, but with the slow progress at the federal legislative level, there are renewed attempts to find practical solutions from the banking, insurance, and from the securities side in the United States. So I am part of a committee put together by the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp on capital markets issues for operators in the cannabis space in the United States, to basically set up a series of meetings with different folks. My interest, of course, is Wall Street, to come to grips with the issues around the exchange's inability at this point to list these companies. And their decision on that point, which is not necessarily driven by the legislation, they are probably capable of coming to the same conclusion that we did 5 years ago, but have elected not to for a variety of reasons, which I won't comment on. But as I say, there's an opportunity, I think, at some point to perhaps get some movement on that side, which of course would be incredibly important because it would reduce the cost of capital. It would open up significant new sources of potential institutional ownership in the for these companies. And I think that would really fuel the scaling up of some of the bigger, more successful companies in the space, which also leaves, of course, a lot of opportunity for the craft operators as well, because they're building out the business, and it gives, as I say, an opportunity for the small trees in the forest to grow and prosper as well. Because collectively we are, in fact, building, a genuine, legitimate, legal ecosystem for a consumer product here.
Yeah, it's exciting to watch, and exciting to watch alongside you guys and actually watch your role in it as well, because it's always exciting to be down the road for people playing this sort of pivotal role, and have been for a very long time, as you mentioned. And we're going to continue this conversation in New York on the 29th, and we appreciate the sponsorship of that, because we're sort of posing the question that, does New York become the sort of next hub or the world hub of cannabis, whether that's like finance or just its relative market size, but maybe even more than that, its sphere of influence, sort of from a cultural perspective, from a business perspective, and all of these issues we're going to be talking about. But I mean, it does. I mean, I don't know if you like, I believe we are in the sphere of influence often of what's happening in New York. I know I'm from Massachusetts. That's absolutely the case. We've seen New Jersey move faster. We've seen Connecticut move faster, right? The Northeast of the US is going to be a hub of cannabis. And I guess I want, if the companies listed with you are thinking the same thing.
Well, I'm just a humble boy from a small town Ontario, so far be it for me to comment on the U.S. situation. But isn't the normal course of things to be the New York is the hub of finance and California is the arbiter of style?
Sure.
Just
Okay,
saying.
unless it's downtown. I'm partial to downtown Toronto and both of those things, but.
So anyway, there's no doubt that legalization in New York, and indeed in the tri-state area, is incredibly important. And again, if they do it right, and I appreciate that the taxing impulses, unfortunately, are perhaps at an all-time high. Yeah. But New York does have, I think, a tremendous opportunity to blaze a trail. Not just, of course, for the business of cannabis, which of course is what we're talking about, but certainly, the social equity and social justice issues, which many folks are extremely interested in pursuing and advancing. with the developments in the industry that we hope to see. So, yeah, I think you're right. This is a watershed moment, and if they get it right, it has the opportunity to be tremendously impactful.
Well, great. Well, it's been great to connect with you here like this. And it'd be great to connect with you in person in New York.
Even better, Jay.
Even better, the 29th of September in New York City. And it's a good timing because yesterday Porter started flying. So we will see you at Billy Bishop Airport potentially, and we'll see you in New York. Richard Carlton, thanks for being here.
My pleasure, Jay. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
That was Richard Carlton, the CEO of the Canadian Securities Exchange. If you like this program, please rate and review us wherever you heard the podcast. It helps support the work we do. We're able to do what we do because of our ongoing partners, including Alterna Savings, Cannabis at Work, Cannabis Benchmarks, Can Dalton, Gallagher, Headset, and Torque and Main. Find out all that we do at businessofcannabis.com.